Welcome to the Rich Carroll program, y'all. I am your host, Rich Carroll. This is the third show in a row I've had to do about firearms because the gun control push just keeps on going. It is a tragedy what happened at that high school in Parkland, Florida, but that is not a reason to disarm law-abiding citizens. And that's exactly what's happening with some of the legislation that's being pushed. And it's not necessarily legislation that would have prevented the shooting either. But there is one issue that is really being advocated that I want to address, and that is raising the age to purchase semi-auto rifles to 21. Off the top of my head, I can think of four pretty big name Republicans who have proposed as a solution raising the gun buying age to 21. Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, Bill O'Reilly, Governor Rick Scott of Florida, and President Donald Trump. Yeah, the shooter in Parkland, he was 19 and he purchased his firearm illegally. But had he been denied the sale of a firearm, he could have found another way to murder 17 innocent people. He could have simply stolen a firearm like the Sandy Hook shooter. That guy stole his mom's gun and he killed her with it. Or, God forbid, he could have driven a vehicle into a group of students at 60 plus miles per hour. But because he used an AR-15 that he purchased legally, Florida is now rushing to ban anyone under 21 from buying a semi-auto rifle. There was a shooting at Marshall County High School in Kentucky recently. That shooter was 15 years old. Do you think an age limit on purchasing firearms would have stopped him? Or how about this? Did you know in some states, Georgia, for example, you can join law enforcement at the age of 18. You can join the military without parental consent at the age of 18. And you can also be drafted for military service at the age of 18. But yet in Florida, they are wanting to penalize every single adult under 21 who can competently serve in a capacity that may require the use of a firearm. Because if you're a cop or in the military, chances are you're going to come into contact with a firearm. Let me ask you something with military and law enforcement professions in mind. Do we generalize every service member or law officer when one of them goes off the rails? Nadal Hassan, he killed 14 innocent people at Fort Hood, right? Yet we don't associate all service members as deranged terrorists. And in South Carolina, Officer Michael Slager shot and killed an unarmed and fleeing Walter Scott. Yet we all still dial 911 when we're in trouble. Why? Because we don't judge the collective for the actions of the individual, or at least we're not supposed to. So I wonder if Senator Rubio and Governor Scott, have they considered that their support for raising the rifle buying age is preventing 18 to 20-year-old Floridans from being able to constitutionally defend themselves? Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massey tweeted out a pretty good point. He said, quote, "Why should a 20-year-old single mom be denied the right to defend herself and her kids? We should lower the age to buy a handgun to 18 instead of raising the age to buy an AR-15. I know if I was a Florida resident, I would be tying up my state legislators' phone lines, telling them to defeat the 21-year-old age requirement. But then again, I'm a Texan. Now, this whole age limit on firearm purchases leads me to another story out of Oregon. Oregon Live reports 20-year-old Tyler Watson is suing Dick's Sporting Goods and Walmart for refusing to sell him a rifle. The two retail stores, they put the must be 21 to buy a rifle policy in place after the Parkland shooting. However, Oregon law allows residents to buy shotguns and rifles at the age of 18. The lawsuit says Dick's and Walmart are violating Oregon policies that prevent discrimination on age. Here's the thought. I wonder if a similar lawsuit could be filed against Florida, a Florida age requirement that says the state of Florida is denying a Second Amendment right for 18 to 20-year-olds to defend themselves. Now, I do want to point you to a new piece of legislation regarding age requirements on a federal level. Congressman Thomas Massey of Kentucky, who I mentioned earlier, has introduced H.R. 5112. This would drop the age requirement to purchase handguns to that of rifles, which is 18. Now, I support this legislation. I support it for the reasons I listed above. If you're old enough to join the military, or join law enforcement, and you're old enough to be drafted, then you are old enough to exercise your Second Amendment right to self-defense responsibly at the age of 18. Those who abuse that, like the Parkland shooter, need to face the consequences. If you feel like I do on this issue, then contact your legislators and tell them to support H.R. 5112. Because we are only going to disarm law-abiding citizens by raising age requirements on firearms. And you can find your legislator contact information and all the stories I've mentioned in my sources section of this video. I'm Rich Carroll. Thank you for tuning in once again. God bless.